Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you have a terrific day ahead of you. In today's version of Solving Your Problems, I start with press conference updates, of which there are many and important ones. Then we move to bench dilemmas. Again, there are quite a few. From there, I go on to captaincy with the three people you see on screen, just to wrap it all together and have it in one section with these three contenders. And then actually a section recorded yesterday, which was in the team selection video. But instead of having to make you go there to watch it, I've just put it in this video. And one that I think has so much value to it because it allows you to see a potential wildcard 13 draft and all my thoughts as to why I wouldn't be looking to wildcard in 6 or 8. And I'll make a couple notes on that before I hop into that section from yesterday as well. One quick thing, I was on the fantasy show today. And firstly, thank you so much for your support for helping me get to an opportunity like this. And secondly, if you would like to watch it, Sky Sports and TNT, it's on there tonight, and I guess your local sports channel will show it as well. So that's all that's need to be said in the introduction. I hope you have a terrific weekend ahead and enjoy the video. Right, let's start with the press conference updates. And there's a reason I put Strand Larsen first, because I think in the grand scheme of FPL, this is actually a big deal. When those fixtures, I guess they swing partially now, but he's probably not going to be fit enough to start, following the comment on screen, which says, for those listening, I hope tomorrow he can help us, obviously not for 90 minutes. I think that's more indicative of a benching and then a 30-minute cameo. And then the week after, yes, Spurs. But from game week 7, the fixtures really improve. He's a quality player. There's a reason Newcastle put so much money in the bid for him, and he's got penalties. And with that set of fixtures, I think he could be a magnificent enabler, especially if you're looking to have like Haaland, Palmer, Gyökeres, Haaland, Salah, and so on, right? So certainly one to keep an eye on. Absolutely one to keep an eye on. And if you've got him, I definitely wouldn't be selling him. Maybe not starting, but I would definitely be keeping him. A chance he starts, but I personally don't think so. Ryan Christie, Iraola said he's fit to play, and that's especially important for this fixture. I mean, if you look at how they used Scott in the pivot last game against such a physical Newcastle side, you probably want one of your better jewelers and someone who's got a different body type, a different physical profile in that sense, just to contend with Newcastle's midfield a little bit better and the type of game that will come as such. And Ryan Christie is your man for that. So him partnered with Tyler Adams, I think will be better. Adam Wharton fit to play, good for Palace's clean sheets, helps him out defensively. Good for Mateta with his passing and his progression from the middle. So that's great for Palace and not so good for West Ham. And you know what? Whilst we're there, I think Graham Potter, with Nuno Espirito Santo potentially waiting in the wings and maybe a few other candidates, I think he really needs to start getting results. Because to be fair to him, right? I mean, to be fair to that squad, they've got Somerville, they've got Paquetá, they've got Bowen, they've got Callum Wilson. Masanga, I've heard is actually quite decent. It's a decent base. I mean, I quite like Todibo in a 3 on the right. Bowen's quite a big fan of Mavropanos. So, you know, they've got Wan-Bissaka. Juve looks a pretty big threat at wing back. So they've got players, right? They definitely have players. And I think they should probably be performing better in comparison to where they are. Something to consider. Branthwaite and Mikolenko, Moyes was very cryptic about them. He didn't say they were out. He didn't say that they were fit. Like I said, he was just very cryptic. I'd say Mikolenko has more of a chance of this fixture. I was reading a few comments under an Everton post by obviously Everton fans, and they weren't really mentioning Branthwaite too much, but Mikolenko, they all said, oh, I hope he's back because he usually has a good game against Salah, and he's the more likely one, essentially. That's what I took from it. So something to consider in terms of that game tomorrow. Isaac Ekitike, Slot said he was impressed by the physical output he got out of Alexander Isak for Atletico Madrid. However, he said that Isak felt his body more than ever before. I personally still think Ekitike starts, and then Isak can make a good 30, even like a 35-minute cameo. Slot's shown his capability to be ruthless in that sense with substitutions. And I would be expecting, an Ekitike start, and then depending on performance, anywhere between 55 to 75. And, you know, maybe Isak comes on together. Everyone says that, like, Ekitike's good out on the left, right? But Isak's very good drifting towards the left-hand side as well. And I think even that could be a solution at some point. So, yeah. I personally think Isak's bench, but then he'll come on. And if you've got Ekitike, it's probably the last chance you're gonna have to start him for a while. Garnacho, Maresca said, I think he's ready to start. With Pedro Neto, he's had a lot of games and a lot of football in his legs. However, I wouldn't be surprised if Maresca continues to start him, maybe on the right to help with the defensive output, especially if Cunha's going to start, who I don't think will start. I think he'll be benched and then come on. But nonetheless, I think he could play on the right to help in that regard. And then on the left, I mean, Gittins hasn't looked great. And you know what? If there was ever a game you wanted a player to come in for, I actually think it's this type of game. I mean, they'll be so up for it. He's got a massive point to prove. The Desire will never be as strong for his first game than this one. Not Bayern away, not Real Madrid away, not Barcelona at home, none of that. It would be this United away fixture for him. So I think if he starts, you'll get a little bit extra out of Garnacho for this game. And I think that'll be good for us. Murillo, he's still a doubt. The comment from Postecoglou went on for a while. It didn't sound great. I don't think he's going to risk him. He's his most important centre-back in this system, and I would be expecting him to return next game week. But for me, I don't think he plays this one. We'll come on to the bench boost. Obviously, that's affecting some of you. And then lastly, Matthias Cunha. His personality just screams that like he's been knocking on the manager's door saying, play me, play me, play me. I can play, I'm fit, I'm fit. Even if he's not like 100% of there, which he probably knows. But I expect him to still be benched. I think Amarim will take a cautious approach with him to some extent and then reintegrate him for Brentford and Sunderland, because to bring him back just a little bit too early and you see a reoccurrence of that injury, especially because it was a hamstring, that would be a killer blow, because they are the level in attack with him and without him is chalk and cheese, right? Such a good player, so important for them. And yeah, I would personally expect him to be on the bench, but then cause us some problems maybe when he comes on. Right. The staple piece of this video is usually benching dilemmas, but this time I'm going to combine it with the bench boost because it flows so nicely. All right, firstly, Sels versus Dubravka. For me, this has to be Sels. One, you've got no Ogachukwu, which is a huge blow for Burnley, right? He's one of their most important players. That's a huge blow. They're also probably not going to set up in a very compact, deep 5-4-1 that doesn't really spring at many points and try and impose themselves territorially, let's say, right? So with those two things in mind, and just style, the fact that you probably have more numbers, the fact you will have more numbers in attack than you would under Nuno Espirito Santo. The fact that this game anyway wasn't one where you'd probably expect Forest to really be hurting them in transitions consistently. You'd expect Forest to have more of the ball and then try and break them down at times or play through them. I think with that in mind, and just style actually might work a little bit better for this game. So yeah, I've got Forest scoring almost definitely. Also, the other thing is, whilst Wood is not an Ange striker, I still think he can profit from the system. And you've got Enjoy, you've got McAtee, you've got Hutchinson, you've got Adoy, you've got Gibbs White, you've got Eddie Anderson, you've got Douglas Luiz. That's a lot. And I haven't even named the other two strikers as well. That's a lot, right? And I don't think Burnley keep that out, especially without Ogachukwu, and I expect them to be a bit more open, at least than they were against Liverpool. Maybe a via media between that and what we saw against Spurs and United, which leads perfectly into the bench boost, because a lot of the bench boosts have Dubravka and Esteve, at least one of them. And I just think down the line, you'll get a better opportunity, whoever your budget defender and goalkeeper is at that time, to play the bench boost. But for this game, I've got Forest scoring. And honestly, I've got them scoring more than one, which means -1 for each of them. And if Dubravka's not coming up with save points and Esteve doesn't hit DEFCON, it's going to be a bit of a bust. That puts a lot of reliance on the likes of maybe a Reinders or an Anderson or whoever else to come up trumps. And that would only be to bring it to an average score, right? So I personally wouldn't. Spurs defenders, this is a really interesting one. Individual quality across that backline. Porro, but then especially Romero, and then even more so Spence. I'd say this season he's been phenomenal. And then even more so, you've got Van de Ven. With the midfield they have in front of them, a lot of individual quality. And in any game, they'll be able to clean as such. Then you've got also the individual quality of Thomas Frank as a coach. And you combine that, it's hard. They've also been a little bit lucky. I mean, they should have conceded at least once, but probably more against Burnley. Probably should have conceded against Villarreal. Could have conceded against City. And they did concede against Bournemouth. And then West Ham, I think that's a pretty fair clean sheet. Paquetá had that one chance. They had a good 20-minute spell, West Ham. That's about it, right? So with that in mind, I'd say they've got a little bit lucky so far to return the number of clean sheets they have. I've personally got Brighton scoring. Big game Brighton, Mitoma, Minter. Minter looks really good at the moment. Final product still lacking, and I think that's to do mainly with his mental profile. A little bit of physical, mainly mental. But nonetheless, I think with what they've got, and Ruta maybe getting some more minutes in his legs now from the last game, they'll score. That's all I think they'll score. But like I said, I can envisage a scenario where Spurs keep a clean sheet for the quality that they have, and also the fact that when you're riding your luck, right? Reinders, I'd ideally bench him. He can still return. I think when you look at this Arsenal team, right, they are the most transition-proof defense, I'd say maybe in the world. They are full of physical monsters. Rice, Gabriel, Saliba if he plays, Marino. To have that in your midfield is a lot. Calafiori. And then maybe you don't associate it with Timber or Miles Lewis-Skelly or even Ben White. But in many ways, their physical levels are so impressive. And likewise, for example, with even some of the front three helping out in defense, right? Their press is so good. They cut passing lane so well. With all that, and then you look at the type of returns that Rangers really wants to get. The Fulham, the Wolves type, where he's able to ghost, where he's able to run from deep, and then return in that sense. Whereas when he's maybe between the lines in the middle of a block, is he going to return like that? I think it's less likely, especially when it's the Arsenal block. I really like him as an option, but the one thing I'd say is, for now, he's been a little bit wasteful. I mean, maybe he could have returned. He should have returned against. He definitely should have returned against Man United. Maybe could have had a little bit more last night against Napoli. Was unlucky against Brighton. So in that sense, it doesn't seem to have fully clicked for him. And I'd be okay benching. If you want to bench boost it, like I said, I wouldn't because of your defense, mainly this week, and the fact that I'm not anticipating too many cleans. But I get it. Dewsbury Hall's similar. I mean, very difficult fixture. He also doesn't have what Rangers has in the sense that he can burst and get into that box like really well. Dewsbury Hall doesn't have that in the same capacity, and you'll think that Everton will really only hurt Liverpool in transition. And I don't think he'll be able to hurt them as much as someone like Rangers would in that position, in that role, in that game. So I have his attacking returns as less likely, and as such, I ideally bench him as well. Arsenal defenders, I think you start. They haven't conceded a big chance this season, which is ridiculous when you think about it. We're 4 games into the season, and they haven't conceded a single big chance. I was on the fantasy show today earlier, like I said, and Stephen Gallagher, who was the virtual guest with myself, said that they'd only conceded a chance up to 0.12 XG. Ridiculous, right? It's like basically 1 in every 10 times you're going to concede it. And that's it. That's ridiculous. So good. So yeah, I would probably start Arsenal defenders. The reason I pause there is I think about City's block breaking dynamics. And whilst Haaland's looked so good so far, and Foden's obviously coming into form, and he looks sharp as well, I still think that if you want to break a block, one of the best weapons would be Savinho, especially the Arsenal one, and you're not going to have too much of that. Obviously, you've got Doku, but you're not going to get too much attacking output out of the fullbacks as well. So I personally can see it being a little bit difficult for City to score, and I've got the Arsenal defense here. Senesi's tough because I can see Newcastle scoring in a game where there's going to be so many transitions. Undoubtedly, Newcastle will have opportunities at some point. Even with their Thursday night fatigue, they've got a little bit of depth, I guess, because Gordon played, for example, 90 in that. I'd say they could score once, but he probably gets DEFCON. And let's say they only concede once. That's still 4 points and quite solid. And it's not like he can't clean. He absolutely can. So I'd probably start him, but I'd just be aware that Newcastle could definitely score. And then Anderson, I'd say he's 55-45 in terms of a start. Mainly because he's got that DEFCON going for him. Sorry, I thought I heard something. In the same way that Senesi does. But Fulham can be a very stubborn defence. And I wouldn't say that Brentford, they're not a bad attack. They're just not a great attack. And at home, a Fulham defence, who weren't great against Leeds, but nonetheless, I'd expect them to at least pose a tough threat. And he's always got DEFCON as a huge floor raiser, right? So, yeah. That the last section for myself today before I hand over to myself yesterday for the wildcard chip strategy transfer plan section. And I will start with Mohamed Salah. I really don't have too many negatives with this at all. Yeah, I think his supply is a little bit cut from last season. And yeah, I don't think his roles is optimal. But he's still the best attacker in the league. Everton, whilst certainly will pose some form of defensive problem with their 4-5-1, which is what I'm anticipating, he's still good enough to break it down himself and then just generate returns for himself within that. And it's not just him, right? Like Slot may tweak it tactically, and the conditions for him to return improve. You've obviously also got the quality of, let's say, Szoboszlai right centre mid. And even if he doesn't play that, Wirtz will still drift there at times. And then Frimpong / Bradley from right back. Yeah, it's not Trent, but it's still good. So yeah, I don't think this is bad. It's more so me just thinking Palmer's good and looking at the upside there. But I don't think Salah's bad, and I don't really have anything negative to say in particular. Semenyo, I still think is a really solid option. He's probably looked like the biggest threat in FPL this season. He's got everything going for him. I've obviously spoken about in the past how I think Tavernier could be a really, really, really interesting positive for him when he's playing in the middle as opposed to a Cliver, just given the mental and physical profiles, to having him more of a passer. And therefore, Semenyo becomes a bit more of the main man in the team. Not only do you get the ball a little bit more, but also that sense of responsibility to be the one to score the goals. Whereas with Cliver, it's, he's more of a carrier, he's more of a shooter. And that burden, if you want to call it that, but more so the responsibility, he's shared. So that's that. You've obviously got Newcastle's fatigue. They're at home. It's a game stylistically which suits him. So again, a lot of positives there. What's got me to go Cole Palmer is what I can split up into 3 categories. 1, injury post-form. And he also hasn't had too many minutes. Like, yeah, he had Brentford, and you could say he had Bayern midweek, but he didn't start Brentford, right? And he didn't even have like a full half against Brentford. And for a lot of it, we had the ball, so it wasn't the most intense game in terms of his requirements off the ball, for the second half at least, that he was on. And yeah, post-injury, Palmer has looked superb. Doing that at Bayern is not easy, right? They're a very good side, and he was just brilliant. And sometimes we all just need a little bit of a rest, right? And his body clearly just needed it. And now he looks a lot better. Secondly, the way he'll be platformed against Manchester United, I can envisage a lot of scenarios which have been better than the ones in the recent past, right? Even if he's at the top of the diamond, right? As I spoke about at some points this week, whether it's Neto or Garnacho on the left, both I think will suit him better. And then on the right-hand side, if he is at the top of the diamond, it'll be covered, whether it's Esteval or then maybe Neto on the right with Garnacho on the left. Okay, I honestly don't think against this United side, when they only have 2 in the middle, and it's harder to nullify his threat in that way, it's too bad, right? The other way he could do it is he could play a box midfield, because apparently Lavia's been training all week, and we saw a lot of the box midfield with Lavia. Caicedo inverting from right back, Enzo left centre mid, Palmer right centre mid in a proper box midfield. Alternatively, he could use Esteval to hold his width, and then play Palmer inside right. He could alternatively use Gusto as the right back who goes forward, Cucurella left centre back, Gusto holds his width, and he complemented him for his performance against Bayern, right? He singled him out, he singled Sanchez out, and he singled Palmer out. So he could just repeat that dynamic again. And with that being the case, I can see him being platformed far better this game than he has been in the past. And then lastly, United themselves, when we catch them in their 5-2-3, for example, their 2 wide forwards, inside forwards a little bit higher, and we play through them, especially with neither of their pairing in the middle really being that physical destroyer type, like, for example, Moises Caicedo, the amount of time and space Palmer will have is almost definitely going to be more than what he would have had against Crystal Palace, let's say. And I think he'll be able to hurt from there. In transition, when their wing back spring, and it's essentially at times like a 3-1-6 or a 3-2-5, I think we can really hurt them there in transition. The ending got slightly cut off there, but essentially those are my reasons for captaining Cole Palmer over Mohamed Salah. And yeah, I really like Semenyo as well. I think any of the 3 options are solid, but for myself, it's definitely going to be Cole Palmer this week. So what you can see on screen is the Fantasy Football Hub My Team AI tool. And I'm essentially just going to show you how my team has slightly differed with the transfer in of Palmer now, why I like it, and very, very briefly, and without being in too much detail, up to Game Week 12, so that I can lead on to the next section nicely, right? And I'm hoping that the feed in OBS from the screen doesn't change. All right, so this is what it looks like this week. I mean, triple Forest away at Burnley, triple Chelsea away at United, double Bournemouth, which is a nice long-term hold, and then the guys from the game in Liverpool. All things considered, especially when I look at other teams, I quite like it. Then in Game Week 6, this is where I take a hit. And it's essentially Haaland and Rangers for Gakpo and Chris Wood. Now, if I was using the old strategy, Palmer would be Gakpo. Now, it's Palmer captain and Palmer in Game Week 5 and 6 versus Salah captain, Gakpo, and 4 points. I'm okay taking the upside with Palmer there. I think he can certainly repay that. And if not in Game Week 6, then Game Week 7 maybe, when he has Liverpool at home and obviously Gakpo's Chelsea away. I prefer Palmer for that. You'll also see, and I'm just going to double check that it's still recording. Yeah, it is. I brought in Gabriel this game week, right, for Ryan Aït-Nouri. Now, is a team like super, super strong this week? No, but it's certainly not bad, right? It's certainly not bad. And at some point, we're all going to have to make sacrifices with the quality of the game week. And for me, it's just this one. And then to an extent, 8. I mean, this is still quite strong. All things considering, I could also make a transfer here. I've got a game week rating of 90%. Like, look, again, I agree that this game week 8 side is probably not as strong as I would like. But it could be worse. And with what I'm going to get down the line, as I'll show you, I think it's worth it. Okay, and then here we go, right? This is where it starts to pick up, even though the gaming ratings got worse. I mean, what I've done here is I've actually taken out Erling Haaland because I was going to take him out in game week 10 regardless, because I just prefer Isak away at Brentford at the moment as opposed to Haaland for Aston Villa. That's what I'm expecting down the line. And you know what? If I don't want to take him out, no biggie. But you can see, I mean, I've got Gabriel Cucurella, Kirkes, very strong defense. Dubravka away at Wolves, cool. An Ange Postecoglou type of Forest side with double Bournemouth attack, triple Chelsea for Sunderland. It's strong, right? And Iliman Ndiaye is just never present, and an option I think that could be very solid, right? And you got Rangers as well, who I really like the look of, and I think he's been super unlucky not to return a bit more. Game week 10, what you'll see here is it's optimized to put Saka on the bench, but essentially move into double Arsenal defense, right, for Burnley away, as opposed to just a single one. Have Saka as a captaincy option for Burnley away. Great. I've got Ndiaye with Sunderland away. I'll have Isak for Villa at home. I've got triple Chelsea, which isn't great against Spurs, but there'll be goals in that game. And then the double up of Semenyo Evanilson. I don't need to 100%. And no hits have been taken so far, apart from the one I'm taking game week 5. I don't need to 100% even play both of them. I could always play 4-4-2. If I really want to start Williams against United, if they still look that bad, I could start King if he's maybe playing. But, this overall is quite strong. Game week 11. I mean, now, again, I don't have to necessarily play both of these guys from Bournemouth against Villa. I probably will. He's got a good fixture. They've got good fixtures. He's got a good fixture. There's just a lot of upside here, right? And the reason I didn't go Gyökeres is I felt like it was unnecessary considering JP and Evanilson are there and the quality they possess, and then the fact that this last spot can be taken up by Isak and I can have Saka instead. So 11's still fairly strong, and 12 is the same. Obviously, I haven't even made any transfers in... Did I make any in 10? Yeah, I made one in 10, but I didn't make one in 11. I haven't made one in 12, so I can certainly make some upgrades, elsewhere. And it looks strong. Like if you flick through the team consistently, it does look strong. So I'm more than happy with it. And I don't think at any point it looks like it's in need of a wildcard. I also look at wildcards in that period. And it's very difficult to time because the fixtures ebb and flow so quickly. For example, United in game week 6, Brentford away, Sunderland at home in 7, great. But then straight after Liverpool away, not as ideal, right? So there's that. And then if I move to this, that's what the wildcard draft could look like in 13. And if you can compare that to what I just showed you here with this team, it looks so different. It looks so different. And the upside to a draft like this, triple City for Leeds at home, triple Liverpool for West Ham, triple Brentford, Semenyo for Sunderland, it's really strong. Isak as well. And Voltemada and Livramento. Rice doesn't need to be there, right? Like, for example, Gakpo, Isak, Rice could become someone a little cheaper than Rice plus Salah, but for now, that's what I like. And then in free hit 14, right, you can see the difference already in the power of the free hit there, whilst allowing me to keep a wildcard 13 draft that looks great for that week and the weeks to come, right? I get Salah's part triple Liverpool for Sunderland at home. I'll have triple Chelsea, who I won't have any of in this wildcard draft because the fixtures either side are tougher. I get Palace for Burnley away. I get Arsenal for Wolves at home. I get to offload the City and Brentford assets because City have Fulham away, generally a tough fixture to score goals. And Brentford I think they've got a pretty tough game as well that week. Might be Spurs. I'm not 100% sure. And that's pretty strong. And then game week 16, the bench boost again. It's double Burnley defense at home to Fulham. That could change. Maybe it's someone else instead of double Burnley. And then it's maybe even Livramento and Voltemada in a really good fixture at home. If not, maybe Rice. It's strong, like it's very strong. If not, maybe Rangers. Like it's really strong and stronger than the ones I see now. And it's just completely different to what we're looking at with an earlier wildcard. And I think my team's strong enough. So I'm just showing you the plan I'm currently rocking, and I'm quite happy with it. And in fact, I'm very happy with it. That is all she wrote for this one, ladies and gentlemen. I certainly hope you enjoyed it. If you did, a hype, a like, a subscribe, all would be greatly appreciated. Have a terrific weekend. Thank you for all your support. This is how I will be lining up, and I wish you all the very best of luck. I shall see you on the other side on Transfer Plans, which is sure to be an interesting one. Goodbye and good luck.